Hello, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Greg. You do look tanned, Greg. Unlike me, my farmer tan is wearing off. You look quite
I use a lot of sunscreen.
tan.
So I shouldn't be. If I'm tanned, that means I didn't do it correctly.
Well, but you definitely had a nice cruise. Is that right? So that's good.
I did. It was very
So welcome. I wanted to talk about a couple things today. Let me get again so Lily doesn't get mad at us and what we're talking about here. I want to start off with the discussion of the H-1B lottery abuse case, which is the Liu case. The government answered last night. I haven't been through the whole answer. We will email it out to our clients. And unfortunately, I didn't turn my phone off, so do apologize to you guys. I'll turn that off right now and save that. The government opposed everything, but of course they lost the motion to dismiss. So we did ask the government for the record, which we're going to get. So the record, literally, I may get it today. Hopefully, government counsel will bring it by the office if he can't email it to me, because he's on vacation and near my office today. Christmas. He's actually from near me here. So hopefully he'll bring that by. If not, we'll get it online in the next couple of days. He says it's huge. It's a huge record. The administrative record is all, if I recall correctly, Greg, it's all the comments.
Yeah.
All of them. And I know there were a lot of comments on this rule. So we'll get that. We'll review it. We're also preparing today a Rule 26F notice to the court of the case status, with our plan to file our motion for summary judgment, not a preliminary injunction, but our motion for summary judgment on January 7th, so a week from this coming Friday. Our motion for summary judgment is essentially the same, slightly different standard, but essentially the same as the TRO that we filed in August, which we withdrew at the last minute because the government promised, there would be no more lotteries, which we told them there would be, and they have a great sworn. And I can't wait to put that in the motion for summary judgment. I've got a great sworn declaration that no, of course we won't do that. We also have been alerted by our clients that there are a lot of people planning on submitting a lot of H-1Bs. We will alert the court to that problem as well, because we'll file a motion for judgment on Friday the 7th. The government response will be 2 weeks later, and they will file a motion for summary judgment. We will then take if I get this right, we will take a week and we will file our reply to our motion and our response to their motion. And then on February 7th, the government will file their reply to their motion. And we'll ask the court for oral argument in starting the week of the 10th sometime, because we really want a decision from the court on this case before the government goes to do the lottery again on March 1. Now, we could file a preliminary injunction. The standard's different. But we think a summary judgment will get us where we need to go. We also note, Greg, I don't know if you remember this, but one of our colleagues pointed out to us, the CIS did publish in their, I don't know what they call this. It's not notice of proposed rulemaking. It's their intent to rulemaking. Changes to the H-1B lottery to address fraud.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder where that's coming from. Now, we did ask the government for additional discovery. They are basically refusing to give it to us. So we could file formal discovery if we want to. We have a right to do that. That fight will take 3 or 4 months, easy, during which nothing happens and the lottery takes place. So, what we will do, however, is we will address the issues using the great scientific minds of our plaintiffs, and we will submit the data that we have from the published information from USCIS. Now, we know that they have the data that we're looking for. We know that. We know they have this data, because if they don't have this data, they can't possibly be using creating the lottery. They can't do it. So what we asked for was the number of registrations of advanced degree selectees in the regular cap for 21 and 22. So we want to know how many registrations they get for the 20,000. Number of bachelor's degrees selected in the first, second, and third rounds. Because what we don't know, they told us how many they selected, right? So we kind of got this information, so we're going to go with that. But what we don't have is it broken down by advanced degree holder and bachelor's degree holder. We don't have that. So we wanted that breakdown. We know they have it. Clearly, they have to have it, but they don't want to give it to us voluntarily. And the government's, they're bluffing. You can try to get it, but we're going to drag this out, and you know how it goes. That's the way it is. We also asked for the actual filing and denial rate for each step of the lottery, each of the 3 lotteries, not by employer, but by bachelor and advanced degree category for each of the lotteries. We don't know that number. What we're going to have to do is extrapolate that number from the data we have. So we're relying on our plaintiffs for that. We also asked for the number of applicants who had multiple registrations. We don't have that. They don't publish that. But if they're not tracking that, and we will make this point in our brief, if they're not tracking that, Greg, they are not addressing the fraud and abuse they're supposed to be addressing.
Yeah.
So that, and then finally we asked for the distributions in the lotteries and about internal audits that they've done. As far as we know, Greg, you haven't heard from anybody that I'm aware. I certainly haven't heard from anybody of our colleagues around the country that immigration investigated my client because multiple applications were filed on his behalf for jobs that didn't exist.
No,
I haven't heard about that. So, that's the purpose of us going after this rule. I did hear on the down low, Greg, that people in power in the H-1B program are not happy with our lawsuit.
Well, they're not happy. They're not happy ever being challenged.
Yeah, they're not happy. But I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about employers.
Yeah,
are not happy, and employers are not happy that we have this lawsuit. And I understand employers don't want to go back to preparing and filing H-1Bs. I don't either. But that's not
that is not necessary to solve this problem.
This problem is easy.
Right. You can continue. That's what I don't understand. It's like you can continue to do this electronic registration and all that. There are a lot of arguments and benefits, with the way that they're doing it now. But they can make some basic changes to deal with the fraud issue, which we've talked about,
which we've actually delineated for them.
Right, and maybe that's what's in this coming rule. That they are, at least, this theoretical coming rule, because we know that in a lot of cases, government agencies put something in the regulatory agenda and it never happens. But if but this is something that they can solve without necessarily completely reverting back to the way it used to be.
So I'm going to make our pictures bigger. Oh, I like that. There's a little more depth there. All right. So we did have another update. So that's where we are. That's the timeline, and we'll be reaching out to our plaintiffs with a copy of the filing today. I did want to mention on Christmas Eve, Judge Mehta is the judge in the Ponomorenko K-1 Moscow case, and he issued, maybe it was the 23rd, Greg. Do you recall? You were on vacation, so you don't know. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it was, let's take a look here. It was on the 23rd. The judge says he wants a status report by Tuesday. I think Tuesday is the 4th, right? 3rd, Wednesday. Advising whether any plaintiff has a live claim. Well, of course, our plaintiffs have a live claim because we would have dismissed the case, Judge. That's why it's a motion to dismiss still pending. So if you are a Moscow plaintiff, would you please go online and update your status? We need to know, we need to tell the judge which plaintiffs still have pending case. I know Lily has reached out and sent emails, but please do that. And this is a good sign.
Yeah, I agree.
The judge is trying to get this off his docket. And he was looking for the easy. I think all the judges are looking for the easier way out. Oh, they'll just issue the visas. The only
he might be signaling signaling as well to the government that he's thinking about doing something on this, and you might want to get going.
I think that's a good sign. The only problem for Moscow is there's no consulate. And they're forcing people to take the long march to Poland or some other place to get their visas while making no accommodation for them to do so. So that's kind of where we are. On the other K cases in Rio, Manila, and London, I think what we need to do again is put another notice in, Judge, and just say to the judges, Greg, and say this. In a related case, a judge asked us for an update on the number of outstanding plaintiffs because the motion to dismiss has been pending for X days. We're alerting the court that the following plaintiffs still have pending cases at the court and urgently need this court's intervention. I think we're going to go ahead and draft that, and we'll get that filed next week. So again, if you're one of the K cases, please update our database so that we can know who's actually still pending on this case. Greg, we did finally win the wage rule's gone, so that's done. It's dead and buried. Although there is some hint they may come out with a new wage rule.
Right. We will, and I've been on vacation, but we will be formally notifying our clients, I guess, that that's happened.
Yeah, so that's a good sign, and that's a really good thing. Greg, I do want to get your input. What have you heard? You're on vacation, and you and Chuck Schumer, you didn't meet on a cruise anywhere, did you, to see what's going on?
No, but mostly the activity happened right before I left. So a lot of folks probably know that the odds, Chuck's pessimism generally, I usually hate to say it, but it's usually on point on there. It was more on the mark than my optimism, but and it seems to be the case here that Build Back Better is. What's that phrase from The Princess Bride? It's mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead on there. So Joe Manchin, who is the only person that matters in the Senate, apparently, he made it clear on a Fox News show that, of course, Fox News, that he was not voting for this bill, and it kind of apparently took White House by surprise. I don't know why on there, but the latest seems to be that he still might be willing to vote for something, but I think what it did was it just took the heat off of the having to do something on that fast track, and with basically all this stuff which he wasn't going to agree to. I think there will still be some kind of reconciliation bill, probably much smaller. The question will remain on immigration. We know that the parliamentarian right before I left had already said that she was not inclined to agree to what at least on the legalization piece of the bill, and the Democrats were talking about basically going around that, and we still could see some effort to try. If there is I kind of see that with Manchin, that's not his primary issue. It's mostly been about dollars on there. So I wouldn't say, I would say now 25% at the most would be the odds of it happening. So I would say no, don't be looking at Twitter every day looking for news on this. You're not going to see much, but I would say that there's still a possibility. Look, the other part of it is, Chuck, my Hill sources have basically said that this bill has basically been a block on anything immigration related moving through Congress. So one way or the other, I think if this, either we're going to get some good news here or this will die, the rest of the immigration agenda will start to move along. And there are measures that can get Republican votes. You only need 10 on there. And so I'm kind of looking forward to just being done with reconciliation from an immigration perspective, just so we can get back to trying to advocate on some of these smaller things, which we might be actually able to get through.
Joe Manchin did say he's more than willing to get rid of the Trump tax cuts, which which cinema will not agree to. So I mean, it's six of one, half a dozen of another.
Yeah.
I'm down to 3%, by the way. I'm 3.
Unfortunately, I never want to admit that that's probably closer to that.
So there we are on that bill, which means, of course, the recapture bill is, as part of this, is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I do think actually there are some bipartisan possibilities on recapture.
I agree. I agree. There definitely are.
So I do think that if once this is over with, that we might be able to take some of these ideas that were in there and find 10 Republicans.
Yeah, keep in mind, that if you go back to 2016 when Lindsey Graham was trying to get a vote on DACA, and he couldn't get everybody to agree, couldn't get 10 Republicans, couldn't get the 60 vote threshold. McConnell let him have a vote, and he couldn't get there. I don't see the 10. I see 8 Republicans. I don't see 10.
Yeah.
Maybe that's different in an election year.
Well, I think that's probably true on a broad legalization program for dreamers, but there might be smaller things that you can get an extra couple.
I think there may be a chance to recapture visas. I think that's still out there. But you can tell that the antis are revving up the engine about the replacement theory. That's what your friend Tucker Carlson's talking about every night on Fox News. Replacement, like he was just read the great playbook, the replacement theory. And yet at the same time, there's been a series of articles that have come out in the last week that we are literally missing 1 million workers because our immigration system is broken. And our population growth is basically trending to negative if we continue down the forced limitation by incompetence of USCIS and Department of State.
I think this is one where the business community is going to have to lean in really hard, because that's where you're going to find 10 Republican votes.
It was good to see our friends at the Department of State agree to waive visa interviews for NIVs. If you're from a visa waiver country, if you're, heaven forbid you're not from a visa waiver country, then, too bad, so sad. You can't get a visa.
There have been, it seems like they're finally starting to make some accommodations on waiving interviews, and they, at least with the Afghans, they started doing videos and all that. I feel there's been a little bit of change culturally at USCIS and the State Department, and even at Department of Labor, which is reintroducing liaison meetings that they had, that they're starting to turn the corner perhaps and move a little bit closer to what we were hoping with the Biden administration of the direction they were going to go. I think 2022 is going to be better than 2021 as far as the what we're going to see out of these agencies. I do feel a little bit of optimism there.
I will tell you, I just got a client today who sent me over new client sent me over a notice of intent to deny an L1 extension after an RFE, which I found interesting for instance, so just a straight up denial. Second, they spent the first page talking about deference to prior application approvals. And of course, he had a previous 1-year L1, which, I don't see that. I don't think that deserves any deference personally when you're renewing for 3 years. But they spent a whole page. You never would have seen that in Trump administration. So that's a positive. I'm going to give them the positive. I'm still going to hold them accountable, Greg, for this other.
For sure. We'll still sue. But at least, we're trying to sue to change behavior, and I feel like it's starting to change.
This EADs. How can you justify being a year behind? That's what on your website. You're like telling the world we're completely incompetent and we have no way to fix it. That's what you're telling people. Come on, really? I mean, this is insane. Our EAD case is pending. Government response is due in a couple of weeks. I will tell you that not a same case, but a similar case in the Northern District of California, the
asylum case.
Preliminary injunction was denied by the judge on asylum EADs. And I thought it was a stunning, so there's some wording in that that I found just absolutely stunning in that case. And the judge had said it's a Clinton appointee. He said this: plaintiffs make no showing of intentional delay. We may have said something about that, Greg, in our complaint, or even delay as a result of negligence on the part of USCIS. Well, first of all, I don't know how it can be presumptively negligent to go from 3 months to 15 months on EADs. But then she said this, quote, indeed, given the reasons for delay identified by USCIS, any delay appears to be outside of its control. Now, I have to get a hold of their explanation. I haven't read their explanation yet. But that, to me, Greg, is stunning.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you paid us $410 to adjudicate your application. By the way, we already spent that money on something else. But we don't hire enough people. We don't have enough bodies. We're not giving enough overtime. We're not electronicizing the process, because if it's not a discretionary EAD, and the vast majority are not, this is a computer decision. Just say yes, no. Greg, you could probably design an app to approve or deny an EAD in an hour and say, okay, here's the app. And you want to fill it out, you get, and it's automatically generated just like that. Why are human bodies involved in most of these EAD decisions? Yeah. I hope we get oral argument in our case. I'm really looking forward to that oral argument.
Well, and why they can't just turn the receipt that you have into the EAD itself is another.
Exactly. Why your 485 receipt, for example, is not the EAD.
Right.
Period. Just automatic. So EAD case is ongoing. We got that there again. Great news, though. The travel ban is going away.
Yeah. Didn't even have time to prepare a suit.
No, couldn't even file a lawsuit. It was, but obviously it saved us from the Omicron pandemic. That's what's amazing about it, is how well it worked.
It kept it out.
It kept Omicron out. I mean, because that's how viruses work. Don't. I don't know if you did hear, by the way, you only have to quarantine with no symptoms for 5 days now, because Delta needs their people back at work. I mean, in case you were curious, that's why you got it there. Let's see. We've got. I did want to talk, Greg, about the lottery.
Yeah, a lot of people asking questions in the comments about where things are with the Go case in particular, as well as the new one.
Well, we actually learned something from our friends Curtis Morrison's recent litigation, unrelated to DV 2022, where they admitted, apparently, in a declaration from the Department of State, that they have not mandated removal of the tiered visa issuance system. That was discretionary by Consulate. And so if you're wondering why basically nobody's getting a DV 2022 interview, because the tier process is still in place. And we know from Judge Mehta that that's illegal.
Yeah.
So that actually gives us a ground to sue, because the tiered system did not go away. Spurt Simon, I don't know if he's watching today. He wants to put up, he seems to know when interviews are being scheduled. I haven't quite figured out that system yet. But from people that I'm talking to online, nobody's getting scheduled.
It's worth reminding people of one of the major arguments that we had in in Gomez, or Acker, which was our part of it, was that Congress did, Congress, when they created this program on there, they didn't say that this takes a back seat to employment or family. It was, on its own, but the State Department made their own judgment over Congress on that. And that's what Judge Mehta, one of the key things, he's like, no, you can't basically make that call and say Congress meant this when they clearly could have said that, and they didn't on there. So that seems to be, again, what's happening, except that they're trying to disguise it now and saying, well, we'll let the consulates individually decide what Congress wanted. But that's not what this case was about in the first place. It's not about saying that these consulates have discretion to decide that one kind of case is more important than another kind of case. That is not what Congress did when they set up the Immigration Act.
So, Greg, we need to set up our intake process for the DV 2022 case. You can add that to your list of things that have to get done. So we'll announce that on the Twitter machine. But we're going to move forward, because they're clearly, they've wasted, as we kind of predicted. We were going to wait and see the first quarter numbers and see what they've done. And Greg, I still don't think they've published November, have they? You probably don't know because you were on vacation. Let me take a look here at the CEAC statistics.
Fritz Simon saying something in the comments answering your question.
Oh, really? That's awesome. People know it better than I do. We're looking here. I said there's no November numbers, so we don't know the second month. Yeah. We know from experience that probably nobody.
He says that there are some more interviews that are being scheduled for January and February.
Okay, scheduled, but are they actually being held? That's really the question.
Well, and the other question is, I mean, it's like, are we seeing anywhere near the numbers that will be needed to get, a decent number approved before the end of the fiscal year?
Well, we've got 99 months and probably upwards of at least 50,000 left, right? So I went to law school, not math school, but that's upwards of about 5,000 plus a month.
Yeah.
That they need to be scheduling, and I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, let's take a look at some of our questions here. We'll go in. Oh, Britt Simon is here. Okay. So Trey Yates, how are you? Happy New Year. We've got Ray Biden said they will not interview anyone until April. Oh, okay. Well, I actually asked the government that, and they basically didn't respond to me. Their software is not ready to issue. How? First, it's a lie, of course, but really, how can you live with yourself by doing that? I mean, how do you go home at night and say, "Honey, it's so great to be home with the kids. I'm glad I'm screwing somebody else over in Pakistan." I mean, it's just really. Anyway, I
don't understand what the software, for a program that's been around for 3 decades. Why the software wouldn't be ready
in a minute? It's probably written in C++ is why.
I mean, but nevertheless, I mean, it's like this should be just sort of ongoing updates instead of rolling,
No, I mean, it's unacceptable that it could take this long. I mean, really unacceptable. The government filed a motion for extension of the go deadline, which we didn't, they asked us and we told them flat out no.
Yeah.
We have not issued any visas, so why should we give you an extension? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
They got in the other case, Curtis's case. Curtis basically didn't respond either, and the judge ignored it, and they still had to get it in. I don't think
it's interesting in that other case of that the government kind of blew past a deadline on there, and even though the courts usually are fairly are fairly generous with the government when they miss a deadline, it would be interesting to see.
Well, I will tell you, if they miss our deadline, Greg, I will file a motion to dismiss the appeal.
Yeah.
If you're watching Department of State, just be aware, I'll file a motion to dismiss the appeal. Any communication with Go that can do appealing well, again, what they told us in the Go case was they appealed to preserve the appeal. They don't yet have permission from the Solicitor General to continue the appeal. And that's why they wanted an extension. And I wrote back and said, I don't know why the Solicitor General is not answering your emails. This is a really simple campaign promise of the Biden administration. And I don't see why you would have any problem getting him to agree to dismiss your appeal. So there you go. And so if they do continue the appeal, please know that that is a direct breaking of a Biden administration campaign promise. Britt, how are you? I hope you had a great Christmas. Let's see. Recapture of DVs. We kind of talked about that a little bit. I mean, that's probably my guess, Greg. That's probably going to have to be standalone legislation along with all the recapture, because the recapture part of the bill, which the parliamentarian apparently was never given for review, I think that is a very strong part of the bill. And
yeah, you could get 10 Republicans to probably sign off on that. That's because there's a group of Republicans that draw the line on anything that is sort of a net increase in green card numbers, and they have been able to reconcile that in their minds by recapturing numbers that were previously approved. That's not seen as an increase on there, so that is one way that you could get Republican votes on that section.
And this exact thing passed in a reconciliation bill in 2004, 2003, Greg? One of those two years.
2004, 2005.
Abraham got it in the bill and got it all passed.
Yeah.
So, that's a good thing. Back from my meeting, fiance in the Maldives. Any news on the Manila Embassy or why Ramirez case versus Blinken is stalled? It's not stalled. It's sitting on the judge's desk. Honestly, we will again update the judge on who's left in the case and again urge him. I think if we can get Judge Mehta to issue a decision, I think that will cascade.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will cascade. EAD delay litigation versus Kang. We're waiting for the government's appeal. Government's answer in that case. Happy New Year. Will the law from CIS to curb duplicate issues come into effect? No. It would be a regulatory change, and doesn't look like it's going. That's going to happen. We're going to have to get a court order to stop that.
Yeah.
Dajun Liu, Lin, the HRB case. Does government counsel work closely with the U.S. or blind trying to? The government attorney reports. He represents his client. He has no agenda other than what the agency gives him. That's how it works in court. The government lawyers do not have an agenda. They carry out the wishes of their clients, just like we do. Just like we do. That's how it works. And I agree. I think it's crazy they want to extend their own misery. But if you've done immigration law as long as we have, you would not be surprised by that.
They will always prefer the status quo.
Absolutely. Always the status quo. Whatever's hard, whatever's difficult, whatever keeps them in power, they will do. Going to Consolidated 1, there will probably be a motion to consolidate the appeals into one if briefs are due. And that's because it's the issue. They can consolidate them because the issue is the same in both cases, except that a court decision will be final in our case and not final in the other one. Merry Christmas, Lucas Tangi. And we've got need to find a way to some sort of pressure to the judge. I agree. Well, we're not waiting around. We do what we can, but we are limited by the law and the rules of the court. I wanted to be my friend. Who of us will be processed earlier? Probably your friend. Let's see. JM, we did not file that 2 weeks ago because we didn't have enough data from all of our plaintiffs. We were missing plaintiff data, and we could not submit an incomplete report. We're trying to get everybody to respond so we can give the judge a complete report on the case. We don't want to tell the judge, hey, there's 10 people we can't get a hold of. That does not look good. So JM or Jay, encourage your plaintiffs on whatever Facebook group you're on to update their status so we can do that by early next week. I asked both you and Lily, but judge based on lazy judge rule, says the lazy judge rule. Great, I have to Google that. I didn't know there was a lazy. I've only been practicing law for 32 years. Lazy judge rule, federal court. Oh, you can. It comes up when you Google it. Let's see. Lengthy motion. There is a article from March. A judge had not ruled on a motion to dismiss, and
state law stuff.
Yeah, there's a federal one. There's a federal one though, and there's no law on it.
You lose on that one, and you're really in trouble though with the judge.
Okay. One federal judge suggested you write a letter to the chief judge. Well, I guess we could. I mean, I've never heard of this rule before because I've never had the situation before, right? It's never happened in my practice. We write a letter to the chief judge of the DC Circuit and say, hey, we're waiting on these motions to dismiss, and kind of important to get them done. All right, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Tony N versus USCIS. Assuming delays. Yeah, that's. I talked about that earlier. What went wrong? I don't know. I read the judge's decision. I think she's wrong, but I have to read the underlying affidavits. I was going to run for Senate, but I really like Raphael Warnock, so nothing will be Senate.
I remember years ago you talked about running for Congress.
Yeah, my wife let me know,
wisely.
Is I was Republican for most of my life, and before even Trump came along, there was a lot of movement in the party to become because Republicans used to be the pro-immigration party. They're the party of Ronald Reagan, legalization, amnesty, IMAC 90. And then in 1996, they started going negative. And that part of the party, that tail has become the dog.
Yeah.
So the party has moved away from me. And up until really the last couple of years, Georgia was a Republican state. You weren't going to win them as Republicans. So I just didn't run. And I believe that ship has now sailed. Britt said there's an increase in interviews being scheduled, more in January, some will start in February. But there are some embassies that are closed who don't want to schedule. That's because the tier system still exists for them. So let's see. Britt had a lot of comments on it. I appreciate them all. So they need to do 3,000 to 4,000 interviews a month to get 6,000 to 8,000 people. And they have to update 5 systems to issue visas for the past year.
Okay.
Okay, 5 days.
They didn't know that was going to be necessary?
5 days instead of 1 day? Okay. Let's see. Srinini, I actually mentioned that earlier in the broadcast. You can go to that. The government's response to me on that. Go is still pending. That's where it is on appeal. And I believe there's a status update that's due to the court. So we'll see what they do in the status update. And we will respond to the status update, by the way, from the government. New Consul General USEM posted a video of declaring resumption of visa routine services. I think that's Embassy Manila. I think that's what that is. And I did see that. Seems like a really nice guy. He was reading a script, of course, but I haven't seen anybody getting visas. So it's pretty much, and routine was bad anyway, by the way. Routine has been bad for years. And I'm so sorry about the typhoon. I saw that. I know that's devastating. It's just awful. IDR must be an average age of 9 years old. I love Britt. All right, so that's all our questions for today. We'll be back. I think Aaron will be back next week. We'll be in the midst of finalizing our motion for summary judgment. Hopefully, we'll have filed the notices to Judge Mehta by then, of course. And, of course, we will get other notices done. Greg, anything to add, Greg?
No, I'm working with the team, even though most of us are a lot of people out on vacation for the Christmas week, the dead week they call it. But we will move on the DV 2022 intake.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks to all of our impact litigation colleagues. There's about 100 of us between our 3 firms, and we couldn't do this without them. They really are our backbone. They are just amazing lawyers and paralegals and staff, and they let us do things like this. Hey, Happy New Year, everybody.